let's get started. I have to tell you, I had the pleasure of talking to them before we got here, and I just got excited listening to them tell me their stories. So let's start with you, Heath. Would you mind starting and telling your story?
Yeah, mine's more like a train wreck, though.
Well, you sound like Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Pam. And I want to acknowledge Steve for just putting this event together. I mean, it takes a lot of bravery and courage to have an idea and then like put it in action and actually have people here. So, yeah, my adventure started in 2002. I was actually engaged to be married, and my fiance at the time said, if you don't get out of the car business and get in the mortgage business, there's no way I'm going to marry you. And so I went from a job making $150,000 a year to being a loan officer making $2,000 a month. And at the time, I was thinking my life was set. You know, I could make $2,000 a month as long as I'm in love. 2 months later, she had a change of heart. And I couldn't get back in the car business, so actually, you know, good. You thank God for unanswered prayers, because I found my destiny in life and what I wanted to do, and I thank God for her and for the direction she put me in. But that started in 2002, and I worked for a brokerage shop for 3 years, and then went to work for Secure Mortgage. And for those of you that's been in the business for 15 or 20 years, remember at the time, I think Secure, you could pay $500 per loan and operate anywhere. And so that's what I wanted to do. Like, I want to be my own boss. How many people got in the mortgage business because you want to be your own boss, right? You don't want no one to tell you what to do. You want to do it all on your own. And so I tried to do it all on my own for like 9 years. And then finally, I went to work for Robert Wagner at Republic State Mortgage, and I worked for him for 6 years. And got fired in 2009, joined the Corps. A lot of things changed at that point. That was a huge turning point in 2009 when I was fired. I joined the Corps. I lost my marketing person at the time, who was 50% of all my business and 100% of all my purchase business. And so at that time, I had no idea what I was going to do, but I embraced everything that I learned in the Corps, and from that point on, life has been pretty good, except for a couple of major pitfalls along the way, which we'll share later. But anyways, grateful to be here. Thank you.
Like Heath, I got into the business because of my fiance at the time, my wife now. So I didn't actually know that. That's great. So I was in the technology sector and was engaged to be married. My wife, my fiance then, was in Houston. She was a Houston girl. She really wanted to be in Houston, and I really wanted to get married. So I was like, cool, we'll work that out. It was 2001, which was the middle of the dot-com bust, if you guys remember. It was a good time. And I had no contacts in Houston. So I was trying to find jobs in the technology sector, and nobody was hiring at that time, I can tell you. So finally, I was like, man, that wedding date's getting pretty close. So I'm going to find something. Anything will do. So I threw my resume out there on Monster. A recruiter contacted me about a mortgage gig. And I was like, great, perfect. So I went to work. By lunchtime on my first day, I called my brother. And I said, dude, this is not going to work.
Bye-bye.
No dice.
Get me out.
No dice.
You got to give us some time.
Yeah. So literally by the end of my first day at work, I was calling everybody I knew, like, hey, I'm in Houston now, and I need a different job. After a couple weeks, I kind of figured out maybe I just was at a company that wasn't so hot, and that did turn out to be the case. I was there for a couple of months, and then through a few contacts that I had, just friends, found a mortgage company called Iway Loan. I don't know, they've changed their name now, I can't remember what it is, but I went to work at Iway Loan, and it was like young, and it was fun, and they were doing LendingTree. This was like back when internet leads were kind of just getting going, I think. And I jammed LendingTree leads all day, every day, for a couple of years, and we were doing loans from Hawaii to Florida, and everything was different. Every state was different. It was a mess. But I learned a lot, and about probably two and a half years into it, I started getting referrals just from friends I was making around town. And I was like, man, this is a lot more fun than doing the internet leads. And So I actually also went to Secure Mortgage in 2006, I think, 2005, 2006, and just started working on building a referral business. And had some speed bumps along the way, had a lot of fun. 2009, I moved to Envoy Mortgage. We started building a branch, and this is how fast of a learner I am. I took over 2 failing branches in 15 months. And of those 2 branches, there are 0 people remaining with me at this time. So lots of, I'm a repeat customer, you know what I mean? So learned a lot of good lessons there. In 2013, I got involved with coaching with the Core as well. Actually, Heath coached me, as did Greg Gale, who'll be here later on today. And for me, you know, that was a big turning point in my career as well, and has changed a lot of things. One of my big regrets is that I knew about the Core for probably 4 years and was like, nah, I'm a smart guy, I'm working hard, I'll figure this out. And after, you know, a while of just flatlining, I was like, I got to mix it up. Let's find something different to do. So it's fun for me to get to be here today, just to talk a little bit about some of the things that I've learned through mainly making mistakes, but having a good time and getting there. So.
Kelly?
So I'm Kelly Rogers. I got into the business in 1995. I was a single mom with 29 hours of college. Remember, I went in for the interview, and the guy told me, I was very tenacious, kept calling him to get an appointment. He brought me in and told me that he was going to give me the job, but don't let him regret it, because I was the first person he'd ever hired without a college degree. And so I think that gave me a lot of motivation, because I had left my job waiting tables to become a loan officer. And it started in October. And was Rookie of the Year the next year nationwide, because I knew that I had to get out there and hustle to make rent and take care of my daughter. So fast forward about a year later, met the guy of my dreams, married him, and within 5 years of our marriage had 3 more daughters. So by 2002, I had 4 daughters and was doing about $25 million a year in production. And looked at my husband and said, okay, so I'm going to stay home and I'm not going to work. We can live under a bridge if we need to, but I'm going to stay home with my babies. And so in 2002, I exited the industry and stayed home for 8 years. And I got to miss all those glorious years of subprime and all those great things. But in 2010, that dream husband of mine kind of fell off a cliff. Not literally, and we were going through a divorce, and so I came back to the business that I knew. It was either that or wait tables. So I thought it would be pretty easy, because I had been a $25 million a year producer, and I got job offers from Wells Fargo, Chase, and Bank of America. Forgive me if any of you work there, but I had no desire to work for them. So one of my realtor friends that I'd known from church connected me with a gentleman who had MSAs, that's what they were called, I think, at the time, in Keller Williams offices. And so I sucked it up and said, you know what, sure, I'll do it, just to get back in the business. And so I lived in Spring Woodlands area, had a daughter in college at this point, and 3 daughters in elementary and junior high, and drove to Katy every day. And the cool thing is those relationships that I made in that office, sitting there every day, 9-10 hours a day, 6 days a week, because that's what it takes if you're in an MSA. If you really want to make it work, I still work with those people, a lot of those people. But after a year of driving back and forth and finally getting my relationships built, I said, you know what, I'm still going through a messy divorce, and I took a job with a bank that was in the Woodlands, over at Gosling and Research Forest, Amegy. And they asked me to come in as their private bank lender and not take business from the bank, but go out and develop a footprint in the whole greater Houston area, and build a brand for them. And I said, I can do that. So I started from nothing. And during that time frame is when I got introduced to the Core I was doing about 100 loans a year when I was at Amegy for about 75 to 80 million. So my average loan amount was pretty high. My basis points probably made about a fourth of what I make now. But I was closing a lot of loans. Closing 100 loans in that system was hard. Being in the core, where I met Heath and James and Greg and all those guys, I started understanding that I wasn't happy closing 100 loans a year. I wanted to do more. And so I left the bank after several years and went to work for one of the core coaches in the Woodlands. And started building my business, got it up to about 30 million a year. And after 2 years, doing my 2 year sentence with him, did I say that? I said that. I left, and it's really funny. And this is not a plug for Movement at all, but I had watched my friend on social media for about a year who had just talked about how great this company was. And I called her one day and said, tell me about this company, and can I meet with your manager? Chris Blevins knows this story because we worked together, and it kind of happened pretty fast. We met October 9th, October 25th, I was at corporate, and November 21st was my first day at Movement in 2016. 2016, I closed 30 million. 2017, I closed another 30 million. Some of the tactics I learned in the core really helped me understand how to build a team and grow a business. And I took it from 30 million in 2016, 30 million 2017. We did 50 million last year, and I think we're going to help 350 families for 90 million this year.
Those are all amazing stories and numbers, and I actually asked each one of them what they think differentiated themselves to achieve those things. And Heath, I'd let you start, but I'd like y'all to all interact with you. You all know each other anyway, so you might as well just start talking. But what made it, and actually this time I think I'm going to start with Kelly, because Kelly had a different story than most about what she thought differentiated her and helped her get to the business that she is today.
For me, it was just understanding that it was about relationships and understanding your data. And for me, it's always been about relationships. My word of the year this year for myself and my team was engage. Because and Sue and Danny are here, they know that. I had prints made for everybody's office. And it's about engaging with your clients. It's not about making 40 phone calls on Monday. If you're doing that, stop. Realtors don't like it. It's about building relationships with them and going deep. And that's the thing that I learned very quickly. It was about going deep, knowing my people, and one of my biggest benefits is social media. And it's funny, and Heath probably remembers this from the core. Rick Ruby would stand up there and preach to us, don't be on social media, don't waste your time. I'm like, dude, that's how I multiply myself, because I can put a post out there and I can connect with 400 people, and somebody else can post something and I can connect with them, and then I learn about their families. So for me, it's always been relationships and going deep.
And you don't think the woman of the Woodlands also
Absolutely.
differentiated you?
Yeah. So when I came back to the business in 2010, I didn't know anybody. When you're a stay-at-home mom for 8 years, I don't know how many of y'all have done that, but your life flashes before your eyes daily. But you don't know professional women. And so I went to a professional women's luncheon and was very disappointed because it was all a bunch of Mary Kay and Tupperware and direct salespeople. And I wanted to meet professional women. So I met a lady who was an event manager at a popular restaurant there in the Woodlands, and we created a group called Women of the Woodlands. And we just started strategically inviting professional and philanthropic women in the Woodlands to come to that. And we just boldly went out and asked people to be our speakers. So the first one, we had the CEO of Memorial Hermann Hospital come in and talk to 13 women. And after 7 years, and adding other people that could help lead that, I stepped away from it last year. but when I left, we had 150 women. That helped me so much, and Pam and I talked about this, because it allowed me to build relationships outside of real estate, which people thought I was crazy. My boss coach at my former company kept saying, "Why are you wasting your time with all these non-realtors?" Like, because these give me the opportunity to meet people that my realtors want to meet. And that's where you bring value. If I can connect them with the CEO of a hospital, or a principal of a CPA firm, or just all these different people, the manager of Post Oak Motor Cars, I mean, those are relationships that bring value. And that's where it really made a difference for me.
Heath? James?
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
So the same woman that actually got me into the business also gave me one of the greatest gifts in life, which I have used in business to this day. But we were on our first date, and I didn't end up marrying this woman, but I'm still super grateful for her. We were on our first date, and after 3.5 hours of being on the first date, she looked at me, and I thought she was going to ask me to go home with her, and she said, "Hey." I was a little egotistical, I've learned. She said, "Hey, are you going to ask me any questions? I know everything about you. You don't know anything about me." And up to that point in life, that's just what I had been taught by my parents, because I had two parents who had been taught that for them to get other people to like them, they had to talk and share and speak. But she gave me the gift of questions. And the gift of questions gives me the ability to do anything in life, right? So the power of learning is your ability to ask the right question of whoever you're speaking with. And I don't know about you, but I wake up every day and I've got just a whole plate full of problems. And I think asking the right questions will help answer a lot of the problems that you have in life, but it'll also connect you with the people that you want to do business with, right? As a loan officer, when you want to get in front of an agent, you're going to pick up the phone, you're going to call a realtor and say, "Hey, my name is Heath Barnes with People's Home Equity. How about you and I sit down and see whether or not we'd be a good fit together? What do you think?" She can say yes or no, then you're going to meet with her. What are you going to do? Are you going to sit down with her and tell her how good your rates are, or that you close on time, or that your service is unbelievable? Or are you going to say, "How'd you get in the business?" "Oh, tell me more. What else happened?" Yeah, what'd you learn as a result of going through those hard times early in your real estate career, right? You're going to ask them the questions that allow them to talk, right? We're all waiting to talk. So I think most people are waiting to talk. But just asking the right questions of your referral partners. Hold on, I got like 47 more minutes. But of your clients as well, right? How many times have you sat down with a client and said, "Hey, so tell me how much you looking to put down?" "Oh, 20%. "Oh, well, I'm curious. Why 20%? "Well, that's what I thought I had to put down." "Oh, no, we have other options." Right? That's going to differentiate yourself from someone else, knowing how to ask the right questions. Help you have a better relationship with your wife, with your boss, with your kids, with your referral partners. So that's the one thing that she gave me, the ability to ask great questions.
Before I go to James, I don't know if anybody noticed, when you asked those questions, did you notice the type of questions that you asked? They were all open-ended. They were not closed-ended. Do you like the industry? Yes. That's a closed-end question. If you repeated your questions now, if y'all listened, every question that he asked, they could not give a single syllable answer. They had to talk. I have to tell you, that was the hardest education I ever had, was when I was working at Ohio Savings, and they were trying to train me to ask open-ended questions. Try it. But it works because you get them talking. So those were all excellent questions, I thought. James?
It's a good question. I think I would say two things that maybe are differentiators. One, my dad is one of the most restless but also consistent individuals I've ever met in my whole life. The man doesn't ever stop trying to find better ways of doing things, getting things taken care of. And so I grew up with that. So I'm constantly tinkering with how we do things, drives my team bananas. But I think that over time it's helped me continue to improve the way we operate and how we serve our customers. And I guess the second thing I would say that really feeds into that is I really try to have a mindset of my job is to help people. That's it. I'm helping customers. I'm helping people in the branch. I'm helping make our company better. I'm helping realtors with their businesses. And, I miss the mark, I'm certain, frequently. But that's always my intention. And so, over time, if enough people see that you're consistently approaching your interactions with them and everyone around you with that kind of servant mentality that, hey, how can I help you out? They trust you. And when people trust you, they tend to do business with you. And it tends to go very well over time. And so I think constantly working to improve and doing that with that kind of mindset of how can I help this person that I'm standing in front of right now it makes work a lot of fun. It doesn't really feel like work most of the time. It usually just feels like I'm interacting with another person and we get to do something together and I get to be a part of that. And that's a blast. It's a lot of fun to come to work every day with that kind of attitude. So.
Years ago, my son asked me what I do for a living, and at the time I was working for RBMG in wholesale, and I was trying to figure out how do you explain to a 5-year-old kid what a wholesale person does, right? We buy loans, and finally I went, we help people buy houses. And it was actually so profound to me at the moment because we forget that in the guidelines and in the this and did we do that, and we forget at the end of the day it's about helping somebody buy their home. And when you keep that in mind with your servant's heart, your engagement, relationships, asking questions, I think that comes across when you're on the phone or in person, and I think it makes a difference. And if we remember we help people buy homes, the most important thing they've ever done, I think that comes across. One of the other things that I asked everybody was if you were a loan officer out here or a loan officer's assistant or a team member of a loan officer, what would be the most important thing that you would tell them when they leave here, this is what you need to do next week or tomorrow? James, I'm going to start with you.
So what would I tell folks here that are on a team?
All.
Okay. Actually, I think that Kelly made a really great point. I just started to learn this a couple of years ago. Finding people that you really enjoy interacting with in an environments in which you're really interested in participating in is so key. Just a few years ago, I started to kind of gravitate more toward like, hey, there's this person, that I really like, regardless of their business, and then nurturing that relationship, and then you get to be friends with their friends, and it kind of snowballs, and it really is great. It's a great way to do business, I think, and it's a lot more authentic, that's the dream, right? You want to have a good, authentic business that you have fun in, and you can make a great living. And so what I would encourage people to leave here and think about is, what are the areas that I enjoy just kind of doing my life, and are there people that I can connect with in a more intentional way and spend a lot of energy investing in relationships that are motivating to you. So I think that's just practical. Just sit down and kind of write it down and get it out of your head and then just start brainstorming about ways that you can just get out there in areas that you're excited to be.
Y'all jump in. Kelly, what would you do?
So for me, it's know your data. I'm a data nerd. And so in order for me to, and especially right now, we're in the last 90 days of the year. And if you've ever looked at your data and you know your leads, I know that my leads are typically 90 days out. So the people that I'm talking to right now are my 2020 closings. Sure, of course, you get some people that you meet them and you close them in 2 or 3 weeks, but on average, it's about a 90-day clip. And so for us, this is strategy time, knowing that what we're doing now is setting us up for 2020, so it's knowing your data. I'm a spreadsheet queen. Sorry. It's my friend. I have different spreadsheets. One of them is I like to know all of my leads. Obviously, we track them. And I need to know how many leads that I've got coming in each month. And then I want to know how many of those leads have applied. And then I want to know how many of those that applied went under contract. And then I also need to know how many of those that went under contract closed. And when you start to understand what your capture ratio is, so right now I'm sitting at any given month right at about 68% of every lead that I have come through applies with me. So I know that. And then you know how many of those leads that have applied actually go under contract and lock a loan with you. You have to know that, because if you know that, then you start to understand the ups and downs of your business. I wasn't surprised when in January I closed 7 loans. That was fun. But I knew that it was coming. But how many of you had heard at the end of 2018 that 2019 was going to be an awful year? Did anybody else hear that? Yeah, I expected, oh God, I've got to sell the Mercedes. I've got to get rid of everything. My kids are going to have to go to public college. And because I have 3 in college, one that's grown and one that's a senior in high school. And fortunately, those 3 are all in public college. So anyway, but knowing what that was, but I also saw that I had 141 leads in January. And I don't know how many leads y'all get a month, but that's the most we had ever had. My highest number of leads in 2018 was 92. And so I knew in January, because I had 141 leads, that April was going to be killer. And it was. We started cranking up. February we did 17, March we did 19, April we did 34, May we did 35. I think June we dropped down to like 30, and then July we hit 40. But I knew it was coming because I knew my data. And I knew when it dropped down a little bit that June was going to be lower, and I better get out there and crank out some deep relationships with my people if I expected my business to continue on. And so in July, we closed 40 loans for over $10 million. I know those are crazy numbers, but your business is scalable. You don't just have to grow your business. You don't just have to accept the fact that you're going to grow 5% a year. You're just going to take what's thrown at you. If you know your data, then you know the actions you have to take so that you can grow your business and scale it to where you can go from 10 million to 15 million to 30 to 50 to 90.
How many of y'all would love to have 7 deals in January? Did you hear what she said? She could only close 7 deals in January. I'll take 7 in January. How many of you take 7 next month? Speaking of the word only, I got this from a client yesterday. He said, yeah, we've only been married for 14 years. Say that next to your spouse next time. Anyways, some of you didn't get that. So, number 1, find a coach or mentor. It doesn't need to be in the core. Like, if you want to be obsessed about your business, the core is like obsessed about the mortgage business. But there are multiple different types of coaches in the industry. There's light coaching, medium coaching, and then there's core coaching. But not only find a coach, but be a coach. How many of you have been in the industry for 1 year? 2? How many of you just don't want to raise your hand? So no matter how long you've been in the business, you can still mentor someone else, right? When you're teaching something to someone else, are you learning? Yeah, absolutely. And you also get to give something that you've learned to someone else. And that's true happiness in life. It's not like you learn all these skills and then you make a lot of money and you wonder why you're not happy. You're not happy because you think money has something to do with happiness. It's learning these great skills so you can give them to someone else, so you can pass it down, so you can, have a good life in that arena. So I will always have a coach. I always have at least 3 or 4 coaches in business, personal, training. I just like someone else telling me what to do. It's I
Not
don't
your
have to
wife?
think about it. Huh?
Not your wife.
Yeah, I do whatever she tells me to do. So I'll have a joke I always tell my friends. I say if my wife ever left me, I was just going to pack my bags and go with her, because without her, I'm just like nothing. You all have permission to use that. Number 2, know when are you going to hire your next team member? And some of us think, okay, well, I'm just going to do this by myself. There's nothing in life you do by yourself, right? You need to learn how to find, interview, hire, train, and then get ready for them to leave. Because if you bring someone on your team, what's the chances of them leaving? 100%. So why don't you just prepare for it when you bring them on? Like, how many of you have been in the business for a long period of time and you've had the same person on your team and they've never left? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, never. Well, you started in 95, right? Anyways.
I love you, Heath. I always have.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, the reason why people will stay with you, it's never money, right? We always think if I pay someone enough, they'll stay forever. No. If you hire the right person, bring them on, train them, continue to train them, talk about their future, continue to talk about their future, let them know they can do whatever they want to do whenever they want to do it, and you're behind them 100%, they will stay with you a lot longer. Then if you hire them, train them for a week, and yell at them and wonder why you don't doing the right thing. I gave you a week of training, right? Like, we all make mistakes, and it's going to happen, and we expect everyone to do it perfectly. So.
You had a comment, James.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to echo the coaching piece. Yeah, I've got basically 2 coaches right now, and I'm not doing the core anymore. I'm doing something different, and I started doing that before I even concluded doing the core coaching, and completely agree with that. You've got to always be learning from someone who knows how to do something better than you do, and it's so much more fulfilling of a life if you're growing. And so seek those people out and invest the time and the money in yourself. And if it's not working, find somebody else. But don't go without that in your life in some form or fashion. And so I definitely just wanted to echo what you were saying there. And I agree with the comments on having teammates, people that you hire. If you take the mentality of like, I'm hiring you for this role and you're going to help me out, it's not going to last very long. If you hire someone to say, I need some help, I think you're a great candidate, and I want to help you learn how to do this business, and then as your dreams grow, I'm going to help you get where you want to be, that's a totally different ballgame. And that's a lot of fun, and you will keep people around you for a lot longer. So.
Kelly, you want to talk about your team?
No, I agree. I mean, when you lead a team, you are a personal and professional development coach. That's what you are. You're investing in them, like Heath said. I mean, and part of the role for me is understanding them before I ever sit down with them. If I'm talking with someone, I have them take a DISC assessment before we do our first interview. And so that I understand them, and I explain to them that when we go through our first interview, we're going to talk through that DISC assessment and help them understand themselves better. And it helps me understand them. And it helps me understand if they're the right person for the fit. Because the way that I have my team structured is very succinct. I have a person that all she does is leads. And she's a high D with a medium I Don't know if all of you know what that means, but she's the person that's not afraid to get on the phone or text or email and get those people to apply. And you set a goal before her, and she will meet it. We started off with a goal of 60% conversion, and then she met that, and we moved the metric to 65, and then we moved the metric to 70%. And she's hit 70%, and now we're back down to 68%, and so that metric is sitting at 70% for her to reach that. And then I have someone that all they do, she's a loan officer. I actually birthed her, so she's been with me for, she's known me for 29 years since she was born, but she's worked with me for 5.5 years. And she talks to all the clients once they've applied, and she does what I used to do. She qualifies them all, she engages them, she connects with them, follows up with their realtor, gets them through until they find a property, gets them locked in, and then she passes it on. Again, she's a high D and she's a high I. When she was in college, I wasn't working, remember that. And so she had to help put herself through college, and she did that by doing phone sales in Austin, Texas. And when she finished up at school at 22 and a half, she was the top performer in phone sales at her company, and hated it. Had a horrible boss, like what Heath was talking about, I think, earlier. That person that just, here's your job, do it. And she was miserable. And I said, well, I tell you what, I think the mortgage business would be great for you, but you're not coming to work for me. You go do an internship with someone for a summer and see if you really like it, and then you can come to work for me. And she did, and she's been with me ever since. And then I have 2 people that do contract to close, and they're not a high D. They would be happy if they could crawl under their desk and never have a phone. Right, Chris Blevins? One of them she's been with me for 3+ years, I think, and I adore her. She is the kind, sweet, soft-spoken person that I never had in my daughters. And then I just hired another person. So those 2 people do my contract to close. They take the file all the way from the time it goes under contract till it's closed and that final CD is out. And then I just recently hired she was business development for another successful loan officer, and I brought her in as a junior loan officer to go out, and all she does is develop business for herself. But it goes under our team, and she is learning and growing. She's been in this business 9 years, but she's now getting to actually track her leads and understand where business comes from. And so each person on my team has a very different DISC assessment. They have very different goals, but I know those goals. They all have vision boards up in their office, and we know what their goals are personally and professionally, and I'm invested in helping them reach their goals. And this year was a year of people reaching a lot of goals, and that makes me happy. If I can invest in my people and help change their lives and make them better people outside of the office, then I've done a good job.
So the takeaway I got from that, a whole question right there, was relationships, again, were important. James, you talked about knowing the people to go get business from, not just from realtors, but from friends, and having the right relationships. Get a coach. I think everybody on this panel says get a coach, or at least one coach. I think you all said you have more than one coach. Yeah.
A couple psychologists, too, if you're in the mortgage business.
Well, that's a different story. And then team members, and talking about team members and investing in your team members. For those of you who are in the audience, I don't know how many of you all have teams or are on a team. Can you raise your hands? So we have a lot of people that maybe not have a team today, or maybe looking towards being a team or growing their team. How do you know when you hire an assistant?
So
More than 7
the
loans a
faster
month?
you can hire an assistant, the better, right? For those of you that don't have an assistant, you're in a kind of a catch-22, right? Because in your mind, you think this: I don't do enough business to afford an assistant, right? But then, when you are doing enough business to afford an assistant, then you don't have enough time, right? So you're in a kind of a catch-22. So take a leap of faith. If you need some help knowing what they need to do, call me for absolutely free, and I'm happy to tell you exactly what they can do that would pay for them when you bring them on. So how do you know if you need a team member? If you do at least 5 or 6 deals a month, you definitely need at least one person. If you're doing 10 deals a month, 10 or 11, you need at least two people. And you can do it one of two ways. You can either have one doing the front end and one doing the back end, meaning contact to contract, and the other one from contract to close. Or you can have one person, each of them doing from beginning to end. Like, there are successful teams out there that do both. But just know, if you have one person on the front and one person on the back, as soon as the client gets upset, what do you think they say? I don't know who I'm talking to. I've talked to Heath when I met with him, and then someone took my application. Now I'm talking to someone different. It's a natural reaction whenever someone is upset. They're finding some blame there. So don't let an upset client keep you from actually hiring a team. What a team will do for you is allow you to give your life back to you, and you actually can deliver a level of service that would make them comfortable referring you once you do have a team, as long as you're managing the team properly, and there's ways to do that. So
you want to see some consistency, first of all, because you do have a very real responsibility to the person that you choose to hire, to make sure that you're not putting them in a bad spot. And so something that we've done is we've kind of figured out how to say we can have a shared assistant. If you're doing X number of deals per quarter, 3 quarters in a row, and if you want to have your own assistant, you need to have this level of production for 3 quarters in a row. So there's some element of you didn't have 2 great months and then it's gone. So I would say that for us, a shared person, we want to see at least 3 to 4 deals a month, 3 to 4 deals a month over the course of 3 quarters before we can say, okay, we're going to hire somebody that you're going to share with this other person that's got a similar level of production. The trick there is getting everyone to work in the same way, right? And so you've got to really spend a lot of time ironing out those kinks. There was something I was going to say on that. But the soonest you can do it, the better in terms of your growth. And if you're going to talk to your manager about, hey, I'd like to hire somebody, here's another thing that I would encourage you on. Have a plan. Have a plan for what you're going to do that's going to make the revenue grow in such a way that it makes sense for them to take a gamble. It can't just be like, gosh darn it, I'm really tired, I'm working so hard, I'd like to hire somebody or utilize some help. Say, hey, here's my numbers, here's what I've got. I track everything as well, so I can say, gosh, you can see my lead count is going up and up and up, and now I'm flatlining on the units that I can produce. It's time for me to grow. That's data. And data is very, very powerful if you're trying to convince someone that they should take a chance on you. And so have data, know your numbers, and have a clear plan for how you're going to segment the work between you and your new assistant and what you're going to be doing tactically every day that's going to really boost your business. So
I don't think going and saying heard this panel today and I need to hire somebody is going to work. What do you think? No, probably not.
No, that's actually a great point, right? How many of you would like to hire a team member, but you don't feel like your boss would allow you to hire a team member? Anybody? No one?
They're not going to.
Okay.
Yeah, nobody's going to
So
raise their hand.
I know
on
there are
that
some
way.
of you out there that would like to hire a team member, and you don't know how to have that conversation. Like, you don't go in and say, I just found a panel, I want to hire someone. You ask your boss a really good question. Hey, I'm just curious, when do you think would be a good time for me to hire a team member?
Open-ended question.
And if you're not working for someone that's actually originating, how are they going to know in the first place, right? So hopefully you're working with someone or around someone that is already doing the same thing that you're doing every day, which is originating loans, so they can give you some advice. It's going back to being a mentor and having a coach. You're working in an environment where what you want in your business, you already see. So
So Kelly, you told me 4 years ago you had 2 team members and now you have 6, right? How'd you know to keep hiring? Data, I know data.
Yeah,
Never mind.
it's data. No, and it's funny because what Heath said is true. I mean, realistically, if you are consistently closing 4 loans a month and you know that you want to grow your business, then it's probably time to hire somebody. Now, I was closing 10 loans a month before I got my first assistant, and I was losing my freaking mind. And my boss, who's not in this room, but it was 6 years ago, 5 years ago, yeah. And I was able to hire one, and so you start to understand if you can leverage that person and you hire the right person, you can continue to grow your business. I personally think that if you can get to 4, then you need somebody. Our company's a little different in that probably it sounds a little bit like James's. If you walk in the door as a loan officer, you have an assistant. And you may share that assistant, but you have someone. For me, I think when it comes to team members, and I hate to call them assistants. I like to call them partners or experience managers or junior loan officers or something like that. But when you hire one, don't be afraid to pay for it yourself. Seriously, let's think about that. If you have somebody that's in there working 40 hours a week, how's that going to impact your business? Is that going to grow your business? Do you think you'll close 1 extra loan a month? Is that what their salary is going to cost? I can't tell you how many times I went to my boss, and one of my old bosses is sitting in here, and I was like, dude, I'll pay for her. Take it out of my salary because I'm going to continue to grow my business. And it paid off in spades for me. It's funny, every time I hire someone, my business just multiplies. I mean, it takes me about 30 days to get them ramped up of investing in them. And within 60 to 90 days, I've added several additional loans per month in closings. I mean, we're at a point right now at 40. That's kind of our sweet spot of what we're closing. But I just brought that 6th person on. And this is the person that's out there generating some of her leads. This was her first full month with us. She added 3 closings to us this month. You think that's worth the few $1,000s I'm paying her a month? Yes. Yeah. So I would say don't be afraid to hire, and don't be afraid to personally invest in your own business. Because even though you may work for Envoy or People's Choice,
Cardinal Financial.
I'm sorry.
No, we're
Cardinal
People's
Financial.
Home Equity,
But wherever you may work, it doesn't matter where you work. Every single person, if you're a loan officer in here or a branch manager, you're the CEO of your business.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you hire a person, when you're hiring that first person or the second person, think at that time, when am I hiring the next person? Like, at what point will I be hiring the next person? And then what are they going to be doing, right? Because when you're in the middle of it and it's time to hire that next person, it's past, it's gone.
Past,
right?
exactly.
When I say prepare for it, it's like, what are they going to be doing every day? Do you have the job description? Do you know what you're going to be training on? You know, you just like preparing for it ahead of time. That's like the fun part. You know, we spend more time preparing for our next vacation than we do our own life and our own business. Like, you're going to hire someone, let's prepare for it. So
Having a checklist or processes in place for that person when you hire them is huge, so that they know what they're going to do. People feel accomplished.
Where do you get those processes and checklists?
if you call me, I'll give them to you.
Yeah, I mean,
There you
I'm
go.
an open book.
Y'all heard that,
Anybody,
right?
anybody that works with me knows. I'm an
Yes.
open book. I'll share anything and everything with you to help you grow your business.
Exactly. I think anybody here would, love the opportunity if you called us and said, "Hey, can I get some free advice?" Would love to get some free advice. So most of us don't call though.
You can also hit me up on Instagram or Facebook. Well, probably not Facebook. I'm not on there as much, but on Instagram, I answer questions from people. I've met people here today that I know through Instagram that came up to me and that, just connect with us. I think all of us are open books.
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn and ask me any question. I'm happy to give you any answer, any advice, any forms, like anything.
So one of the things that came up, Heath, when we were talking, you started a sentence that actually, or a comment that resonated for me. So it started like this, and I'd like you to complete it for me because I couldn't write fast enough. You were talking too fast. No matter how successful you are still fearful. You remember how the context of that? Yeah.
I think that in our, no matter where you are in the business, you're fearful of what's going to happen in the future. And that never goes away. Like, I've been in the business, I was meeting with a very successful agent, this is 3 or 4 years ago, and, I said, so tell me, you just were number one at your company, how do you feel about next year? And he's like, I'm super nervous. I'm not sure what's going to happen. So there's not a point in your business where you're like, okay, I feel really good, I'm comfortable, things will work out. It just rarely gets to that point. I do tell myself now, and this is I do tell myself now because I still sit in front of a client and get anxious. And I start to get nervous sometimes. And that nervousness is because I think I'm going to lose that deal, right? That's where it comes from. I got to have that deal. I got to close this client. And what calms me down is I say to myself, it doesn't matter whether they do business with me or not. My life is going to go on. And so it relieves that pressure of having to win that transaction, because it doesn't really matter. Like, that doesn't lose my drive to want to win that transaction. It just calms me down. I can do a better job with them. But I'm just saying, in life, it's like we're always a little nervous about the future. And all that is, it's your brain. It's your brain that's designed to keep you safe. That's always telling you, wait a minute, there's a saber-toothed tiger right around the next corner that's going to take you down. But it's not true, right? We're just, in our mind, we think it's true. We think we're wondering whether or not we're going to get another deal, whether we're going to close 7 in January. Oh, my God, not 7 in January.
Enough, Heath.
But that's it. But that's it, I'm just telling you, like, if you're new in the business and you're a little nervous about what's going to happen in the future, I am too. Like, I'm wondering whether or not we're going into a recession and our rate's going to come down and what's going to happen, and is this person going to leave? Am I going to get this client? It's totally normal.
Yeah. Same for you?
Yeah, totally.
30 years, I still feel the same way.
Yeah, fear it's usually based on some kind of lie you've bought into, right? Like, I have to be perfect, or, I feel loved if they choose me, or whatever the thing is that you get, whatever winds you up. We all have some stuff, And so you've got to figure out what it is that you're buying into that's not real, and then you have to diffuse that, and you have to focus on the stuff you can control, the stuff that you need to control. And I remember 2007, I think it was 2007, did my first $1 million loan for a friend, and I got some bad information from somebody with the bank, and it kind of got a little wonky at the end, you know what I mean? Maybe some of you guys have been there. And I was like, oh, my God, it's $1 million loan. It's my buddy. I literally sat in my office with the light out for like 2 hours. Just staring out the window at the parking lot. Like,
I suck.
why does anybody love me at all, And it was awful. And so I remember that deal. We all have those deals we remember, right?
Oh.
I remember that deal because it was that deal that got me to make a decision that was like, I'm going to go home today. And I still have my wife and my kids and all my friends. Maybe not that guy, but most of my friends. And I'm going to come back to work tomorrow, and we're going to go again. And so the deals come and the deals go, and there's no point being fearful over. You're just doing business, and you're going to learn, you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to get better, and life's going to go on. So figure out what it is that's making you fearful, and really dig into that and find out what the lie is. and then just fix it, get through it, and focus on the stuff you can control.
Most of the time, it's a story that you've made up and you believe it to be true, but it's absolutely not. You just believe it to be true. That's it. It's just a story. Like, we all have 150 views of what life should be like for each of us, or what's going on and whatever's happening. It's not even real. You just made it up and you believe it's true.
So what was the actual question again, Pam?
It was about being afraid. What, you know, as successful as we are, we're still fearful of, and he kind of completed it. After 30 years, I'm always afraid, am I going to get that next deal? I'm going to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
and so obviously you have a few more deals, but at the same time, in my scope of things, am I going to have $2 million next month, or $3 million, or $5 million, or nobody's going to call? The phone isn't ringing, it's really slow. And so even today, as long as I've been doing it, I'm still afraid that next deal is not coming. And how do you get past that? And I do think it's the story that someone told us, probably, that,
2008.
2008 was an interesting year.
That'll get you
yes,
primed.
Yeah. Somebody asked me if I watched that movie. What's the name of that movie? Get Short? Yeah, I said, no, I lived it. I didn't need to watch the movie. Thank you very much. Because I was in wholesale correspondent then. It was an interesting time.
So for fear for me, it was, so I was married to a custom home builder. So when the world was falling apart and I was not in the mortgage business and staying home with all those kids, we lost pretty much everything. We fortunately sold our house before the bank took it, and we moved. I'll just be very full frontal with you. He developed a pretty severe prescription pain medication addiction. And when we sold our house, my parents gave us 10 acres up in Centerville, Texas. You know where that's at? It's a big, bustling metropolis. They don't sell brie at the grocery store, I'll tell you that. They don't even have green apples. And I say that tongue-in-cheek because I was raised a very simple girl. That's why I'm in kicks and not in fancy shoes. But in 2009, we withdrew our kids from school and we moved up there. And my kids were in a school, kindergarten through 12th grade, of 600 kids, and we lived in a single-wide trailer, less than 1,200 square feet. My daughter was off at college on grants and scholarships, and I had 3 little ones at home with me. And finally, when his addiction got so bad is when I left him, and I moved. I came and interviewed, lived with a friend with my 3 kids in 2 of her bedrooms in 2010 when nobody wanted to hire a new loan officer. My parents bought me a suit on Gap because Gap sells tall clothes. I don't know if y'all know, but I'm 6'3.5". I think I'm taller than Heath, for sure.
And me.
Definitely taller than James.
Same with everybody else.
We're going to do pictures later back there, so. But we had nothing. I was on food stamps and my kids were on Medicaid. And so my parents got me a suit, and my mom splurged and bought me a pair of nice shoes, and I had several shirts to interact with that black suit, and I took my job. My parents rented me a house in the neighborhood where my kids had gone to school previously, and I got up every morning, and I would get them on the bus at 6:45, and I would drive to Katy, and I knew that I had to make it happen. And I went from making absolutely nothing to it'll be a 7-figure year for me this year. And that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter to me. That fear propelled me. Every day when I look at my clients and my team members, I know where I was less than 10 years ago. Driving 50 miles to go to the grocery store because I didn't want anybody to see me pulling out my Lone Star card. The same thing for taking my kids to the doctor and to the dentist. And so when I stop and think about that less than 10 years ago I was there, that's what drives me. And it's not really fear, because I have an intense amount of faith. I just lead with love and faith, and I just run towards problems because that's just how I learned that I had to. It was me and my 4 daughters, and I had to make it work, because if I didn't, I knew where I would be back, and I didn't want to be there. And so I think I look at our industry and I look at the problems that we have on a daily basis, and I kind of laugh at them, because I'm like, I've handled so much worse. My husband's addiction got worse. The divorce was finally final, and last year, at the age of 50, he died in his car, pulled over on the side of the road because his vein from his liver to his heart ruptured, because his liver was basically dead at the age of 50. And so now I have 4 daughters that mean the world to me, that are crushed because they lost their dad. And so fear means things to me, but it doesn't scare me anymore. I've handled so much more. And I would guess that every single person in this room has a story, maybe not as crazy and bad as mine, but maybe it is. But we get to change lives for a living. That's what we do, and I tell everyone on my team that. And I know that these guys up here believe it too. That's what we do. We change lives. And I tell my people, if we're closing 40 loans this month, we're changing 160 people's lives, 160 families' lives, 40 buyers, 40 sellers, 40 buyers agents, 40 listing agents. And that's what we do for a living.
Isn't that great? That's a great way to end it. Yeah. I had one more thing that I was going to bring up, but I thought maybe we would see if there were any questions from the audience that y'all had.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Slack. Nice to meet you. I had a question. You described very clearly what your team members do. Would you mind telling us what you do on your team?
So,
Where you spend most of your time?
So did everybody hear the question? They asked Kelly what she does on her team.
So for me, I'm very much relational. I am a loan officer, but I also have 9 loan officers that aren't part of the Kelly Rogers team that I help lead and coach them. And I think I've got 3 of them here today. But to me, my life is all about coaching and understanding the business and helping strategize and help my people be the best people that they can be. And it's not, please don't think that I spend 6 hours a day working. I'm that person that's working 14, 16 hours a day right now, because how many of y'all are really busy? Yeah, and so it's more about coaching my people and growing them, and I'm the problem solver. I think I'll always be the biggest problem solver on our team. So if I walk into the office, we still have daily team meetings, and we do deep dives into where our business is coming from, as well as our pipeline. I'm still that nerd that gets in and does a pipeline meeting with my people, because I want to know where we're at, make sure that we're on target, make sure that we're doing that. If you're not doing a pipeline meeting with your team, you're failing yourself and your people and your clients.
Any other questions? No? Well, then I will end with this last statement. And I don't know if could y'all tell that Heath comes out with statements that are pretty interesting. And so the other one that he said was, problems are a sign of life. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, I guess I'm alive. But and he talked about it in the perspective of the mortgage business. Do you want to expound on what, I already know what you meant, but you can go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that we believe in the mortgage business that a good day is a day where we don't have any problems. And that's just not true. We have problems every day in life. And I think that the illusion that we're not going to have any problems, those people live in a graveyard. And so one of the greatest gifts that you can teach yourself as well as your kids, you probably need to learn it yourself, is your ability to solve problems, right? You go to school and your kids, or you go to school and they never teach you, well, one, they don't teach you anything about money. They surely don't teach you how to solve problems. And so learning the art of solving problems will move you forward in life. And most of the time when we're solving a problem, we're asking the wrong question, like, why does this keep happening to me? Why do my team members keep leaving? When you can ask a better set of questions like, what can I learn from this? What's actually great about what's happening right now? What am I willing to do to solve this? What am I not willing to do to solve it? So asking a better set of questions will help you solve that problem, right? Like, does he have something to pay off to get his DTI, and could he put more money down? What else can we do? So.
I thought that was a great statement. So we have 49 seconds, Jolly. Just a second. I got a lot out of talking to them when I talked to them. Oh, we have a question? Yes.
So what is the magic number of basis points that a team lead needs to make in order to be able to finance that?
Okay, the question was, and that's going to be different for everybody.
There's not one.
There's not
What's the
one.
question again?
The question was, what's the basis points? What's the magic number? Did you hear it? So what's the magic number of basis points that a team needs to make to
Yeah, so for me,
that's
I
what I
spend,
say.
Yeah.
As a production manager,
I
do more
won't-
loans, yeah.
I won't tell you how many basis points I make, but I spend close to $300,000 a year out of my own pocket paying for team members, and my team members make bank. And I do that, I mean, because I want, and I invest in them based on, they don't have a high base salary, but they get paid per file. And depending on what they do and their investment level, I've got one person on my team who works 7 days a week and loves it and thrives on it.
Yeah, it really depends on what kind of business you're doing. Like if you're doing jumbo business, that's different than FHA business, which is different from conventional business. I mean, I can go through pay plans or what people should make in different parts of the team, so you have a better idea of what you should be paying people when you bring them on.
That's a pretty detailed one. Yeah. So
But if you send me a message on LinkedIn, I'm happy to answer it or get on a phone call with you and talk about your situation.
So can you tell why I was excited when I got to talk to them before we had the panel? So yeah, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Good luck.